Alright Ed, so I got all your videos today. We're going to focus in on face-on view today. I checked your down the line view. You're doing a really good job of shallowing out the shaft. And this face-on view, we're going to see kind of if your hips are rotating correctly in the backswing and see if we're hitting some of the checkpoints. But before we get into those things, let's go over some of the lines I got drawn here. So again, you've already seen these ones. Basically, I just draw from the hips straight down just to see where your pelvis and your hips are moving throughout the swing. Now this one right here is a ball position line. So I got Patrick Reed here on the left. You obviously have probably heard of him, really good PGA Tour player. As we can note, your ball position is going to be a little bit too far forward compared to Reed's. So Reed is hitting a 7-iron over here. I'm guessing you're hitting about a 9-iron possibly, or an 8-iron. But your ball position is definitely a little bit too far forward. I would like to see it right where your club head is. I would like to see it right kind of around here. Would be ideal. So anyways, that's the first point of interest, ball position. So let's get rid of these lines. So now let's kind of take both of you guys back and see what we got going on. So as we take the club back, I like your backswing to this point is really good. Let's take Reed back. So pretty similar positions. The main difference you might see is Reed, when he moves off the golf ball, let's actually wind you guys back so you can kind of see what I mean. We'll draw a line right here on your head, and then we're going to draw one on Reed's. Now as you move back, your hips are rotating a lot better, but the head is still moving a little bit off the golf ball, which again, Ed, is not the end of the world. That's something to keep note of. Patrick would be a little bit more what we call a centered pivot with the sternum. You like to move your sternum off the golf ball. I don't really mind if you do what you're doing right now, as long as your hips aren't breaking through those lines. I'm usually pretty good with my players swinging that way. But if you do move ball position back and you're still chunking it, we might want to focus in on that, but let's kind of put that to the side for now and not worry about it too much. But anyways, as we get Reed to the top of the swing, obviously he's got a little bit bigger turn than you, but there's obviously physical limitations to that as well. But you're getting a lot better pivot and a lot better turn than where you were. I'm really impressed with that. That's a really good job. Now, as we start coming down, you got a nice little pressure shift back into the lead side like that. See how your head and everything's moving forward. That's good. We know you're shallowing out the shaft, which is good. Let's get your hands level with the hips. So we're going to stop it there, and we're going to draw a couple angles here. So we're going to go from the left wrist, left forearm, and club shaft, which is right there it is. So you're at 156. We're going to take a look at Reed once he gets hands level with the hips. So we'll say this is hands level with the hips with him. So we're going to draw the same angle. So you notice Reed's over at this 111 range, which is what 111 to 120 with the angle between the left wrist and the club shaft. That's pretty much what I see tour average. So you're over at 156. So we're definitely losing the angle in the right wrist quite a bit a little early. So that's another checklist item to take note of when you're chunking a golf ball. Let's see. As we come down into impact, we'll stop it right there. We'll draw another angle between that and the left wrist, so we're kind of right around, it's a little blurry, but we'll say right around that 177. And notice when it's 177, see how this little circle is on the right side? Let's keep that in note, and let's see what Reed does here. Well, his camera doesn't quite hit it as well. But if we were to get Reed, I guarantee this angle, let's switch over back to your screen real quick right here. If we got this angle, Reed would be a little bit more in this category at 176, but the circle would be on this side. So he would have what we call a little bit more shaft lean than you would. So, a couple notes on this video. Ball position. We need to move your ball position a little bit further back in your stance. Now, let me kind of go into the reasoning why I believe your ball position likes to creep forward. Most players that got that steep shaft, or remember the club shaft was pointing inside ball target line, a lot of players that get that motion play the ball a little bit more forward in their stance because they want to swing low and left, which then makes low point, or if you can think about low point as where you're hitting the ground, it makes low point a little bit more forward, so that's why they move their ball position more forward. Kind of think about it logically when you try to think about these terms. If you were to swing more over the top feel, which again, that steep shaft, do a couple swings where you do that feel where you're over the top, and then come down into the ball and notice where your low point's going to be. Now do another swing where you feel like you shallow out the shaft, and then get into the golf ball. You'll notice your low point's going to be a little bit further behind with the shallow point than the steep one. So it makes sense to me that your ball position's a little bit too far forward because it matched your old swing. But now we got to match your ball position with the new swing. So that would be the first line of interest, putting that ball a little bit more in the middle with your irons. You're probably going to feel like with every club in the bag, you're going to move that ball position back about 1 to 2 inches. So again, I'm not promoting hitting driver with the golf ball in the middle of your stance. I'm just saying for each club, wherever you normally play the ball position, play it a little bit further back is going to be crucial. So now let's get into kind of get into the talk and debate about losing this angle. So there's an angle in the right wrist. We'll draw another one up here. Here, let's actually get rid of all these. We don't need that right now. So there's an angle in the left wrist when you get to the top of the swing, which I believe you're pretty much like tours. So you're over at 98, which is pretty good. That's what I'm sure if we got Reed up into that position, he'd be pretty much with the same angle. Let's draw one just so we can be certain of this. Yeah, Reed's right over at 93, so you're pretty much identical to Reed at this point. But as Reed comes down, he actually increases the radial of the right wrist, or the hinge. So he was over at that 93, correct? Let's see what he is at this point. He's over at 72. So that's kind of a hallmark that I see with the best ball strikers in the world. Whatever angle they have at the top of the swing, when you get their hands level with the shoulders, so again, for you, your top of the swing position is a little bit different, Reed, just because of mobility issues and stuff like that. But let's just say top of the swing for Reed, which is right about here, his transitional move where the hands, when they start dropping just slightly, he increases that angle almost by 20 degrees in the right wrist. And as you start coming down, our next little checkpoint, which would be right here, we have already started losing the angle, and you're over at 108, so you've lost it 10 degrees. So that's a hallmark to what I see with most amateurs. So most amateurs get a pretty good angle at the top of the radial, and then throw it or lose it on the way down. Most pros have it around the same angle, and then increase it on the way down. So that's called radial hinge. It's an upward hinge of the wrist. So we can kind of, I'll send you a how-to video kind of how to focus in on that. So the two takeaways from this video, and the two takeaways I want you to focus in on the future, is we're going to work on ball position being a little bit further back, and we're going to work on increasing the radial hinge of our right wrist on the downswing. Now when we do all this, I still want you to focus in on rotating the hips, which you're doing a lot better job of, and as well shallowing out that shaft. But now you got to figure out how to lay down the shaft, but keep the hinge in your right wrist while you're doing it, or even feel like you maybe hinge it a little bit more. That would be kind of the feel. So next time I see your video from face on, this view right here, if we can get your angles looking a little bit more like Reed, so again, he was at that 95, 93 range, and then he increases it to, let's get rid of that 95 because you already know that, then he increases it to 81, 70-ish on the downswing. So again, let's get that little motion, let's get that little feel going. Glad to hear you're starting to practice a lot. Glad to hear that the swing is starting to feel better on your good ones. I hope this helps, and I'll send the how-to video tomorrow when I get some time to film it. All right, Ed, have a good one.